Welcome to the Spheres of Spirit with Nancy Myers, aka the Lady of the Light. Nancy will discuss the everyday magic and wisdom of spirit which surrounds each of us, waiting to be discovered. She will share some of her remarkable orb photos, proving that our angels, guides, loved ones in spirit, and even pets surround us and guide us in our physical world. During this episode, Nancy will discuss one of the many spheres or aspects of spirit available to us based on her orb photography. She will also share a special channeled message from her guide, Leonini, and do an oracle card reading to help guide you along your personal spiritual adventure. And now, here is your host, orb photographer, author, medium, and speaker, Nancy Myers.
Hi, welcome to the show. Thanks for spending some of your valuable time with me today. I hope you find this show interesting. Today, I'm going to talk about a sphere of spirit that I think, at least in my mind, is maybe underutilized and overlooked. I didn't know anything about today's subject, which is symbols, until I started on this path. Now, as I tell you on each of my shows, I share with you my personal experience, what was given to me through spirit, dreams, visions, what I've learned, what I've experienced. If this resonates with you, great. If not, take what does and leave the rest. I tell my friends I'm kind of a jack of all trades and master of none. So I do not profess to be the end all, be all of each of these subjects. But I'm going to share today with you about this subject because maybe it'll spark an interest. Maybe what I share with you will open your eyes to a sphere of spirituality or spirit that maybe you haven't thought about. So, I am going to talk about symbols. So, why are symbols even in our language? And how far back do symbols go? You know, symbols are all around us, even in today's age, and they have been for a very long time, but somehow we have lost their meaning, or sadly, we don't even care to look anymore. And I think we're losing a valuable tool. So what is a symbol? Well, let's start with the difference between a symbol and symbology. So symbology is when an image is used to represent something like a faith, an idea, a feeling. So what is that? Well, for instance, let's take the symbol of a horse, which is used extensively all over the world, and it almost conveys the same message or feeling, that of power. The symbol of a lion, again, which is recognized all over the world, can convey courage. The symbol of a lotus flower, and we've all seen that. What do we think of? We think of spirituality, but the lotus flower also represents spiritual growth as it opens, right? We all have that image in our head. Let's take the olive leaf or olive branch. Of course, we all think immediately of peace. The image of an owl can represent wisdom. A peacock can represent mortality and transformation. But also colors can be symbols. For instance, or symbolic, I should say. White can be purity, purple can be enlightenment, pink can be love, and I've equated these to some of the orbs that I have shared. And then, of course, there are numbers. Numbers can be symbols or symbology, which is the study of numerology, which is fascinating. And maybe one day I'll have a podcast on numerology with a guest that can explain this. So what I just described to you with those images of the olive leaf, the lion, the lotus flower, those are what I think of as symbology. But today I'm going to talk about symbols, symbols that are written, actual designs, some ancient, and some that actually can evoke power. So if we can bring up the first slide, Chris. So this is, I attached this quote to one of my favorite type of orb, which is what I call the crown jewel. And for those of you listening, all these will be on my website, or you can come back here to OMTimes Radio and see everything. And I'll be holding up some kind of like a show and tell today, but I will be describing what I'm holding up for those of you that are listening. So this particular quote says symbols are powerful because they are visible signs of invisible realities. And that was a quote attributed to St. Augustine, who was a bishop in the late 300s, 400s. But when you look at that, this is exactly what we're talking about. It's they represent, or the visible representation of invisible realities. We can't always see those invisible realities. But if we do a symbol that represents them, it connects us. Thank you, Chris. So what does that mean? Well, first let me say that we are a visual species, and sight is considered one of our most powerful senses. It's followed only by our sense of touch. So symbols can form, like I just said, a visual connection about the natural and supernatural worlds, and they can carry emotional, psychological, and a spiritual response just by looking at them or even by touching them. So if we look at them and touch them, then we are utilizing our two strongest senses. So Carl Jung, I think I'm saying that, Jung, said we can respond to them instinctively. Why? Because a symbol is felt by the heart and not our active brain. It can awake a feeling or a truth within us, one that perhaps we didn't even realize we knew, which happened to me, and I'm going to share that with you here. You see, our eyes are the most important symbolic sensory organ. You've heard the phrase that our eyes are the windows of our soul. It's also the gateway to our clairvoyance and our connection. So symbols, these ancient symbols that I'm going to talk about today, have been around for millennia. And they transcend language and time. Even the simplest design or symbol can be a complex communication because it can have multi-layered and levels of meaning. What does that mean? It means somebody can look at a symbol, and see one thing, but others can go and see that one thing, yes, but go deeper and deeper. It's kind of like what I do with the orbs. When I take a picture of the orb and I first look at it, there's the orb and I see a pattern. But then I can go deeper and the orb changes, and I go deeper and it changes again. So it's because my eyes are the window to the soul, right? The most sensitive sensory organ for symbols. So how old are these symbols and where did they come from? Symbols, and some of the same ones, can be found in ancient temples all over the world. They can be found in caves all over the world. And these supposedly are civilizations that had nothing to do with each other, never had any contact. We're talking 40, 50,000 years ago, right? So I learned about this scientist, archaeologist, if you will. Her and her husband went on a mission to find and research the cave art in Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy. And they did this over 2013 and 2014 because she wanted to catalog, she wanted to understand the cave art that we see. And it's fascinating what she found. She found that there were 32 symbols etched on these caves that spanned 30,000 years of use and were found in all the caves. So yes, there were some symbols that weren't found in all the caves, but 32 of these symbols were. And I want to show you the chart that she came up with. Her name is Genevieve von Petzinger, and her YouTube channel to me was very fascinating, and you can research her, and she has a book that she has written about this. So she found also that these ancient people would paint or etch them or carve them into the walls. So in multiple places at multiple sites. So this is, I'm going to hold this back here and get my hand off. I think you can see that. This is the chart that she came up with of the common symbols that she found in the caves. Now, if you look at this chart, you're going to see a lot of the symbols that we still use today. Very basic symbols, like, for instance, the circle, the hashtag, the star, the half circle, the triangle, the Y, the serpent line, the spiral. And I want to talk about a couple of these symbols because I've traveled many places around the world, and one of the most common that I have seen is the spiral. It's the spiral is found not just in Europe where she studied, but that spiral is found in Stone Age Europe, the Near East, China, Egypt, Polynesia, North and South America. It's literally all over the world. They're painted, they're carved, they're etched, and the carvings can be deep as if they can also be traced by a finger. When I was in Malta, there were many, many spirals at the entrances to all the stone temples that are there. Malta has probably more stone temples, more stone, standing stones, like kind of like a Stonehenge, but much more complete than any other place, I think, in the world. And the carvings and the etchings on these temples and these stone structures are just incredible. But what is so prevalent is the spiral. So I want to tell you about what they think the spiral is, what it represents. Now, it has been around for so long, of course, it can morph and change. But there's a basic belief. And where did these people get this? So, in my second book, I wrote about sacred geometry, and we talked about the spiral. The spiral can represent sacred geometry. In sacred geometry, the spiral is referred to as the Archimedes spiral. And it's the Archimedes spiral mathematically is a curve that is one of several types of spiral functions. It is traced out by a curve which moves outwards from a point, moving further away as it revolves around that point at a constant speed. So I had to read that because that's a mathematical definition. But sacred geometry is also a symbol, and it's represented. And as I talked about in one of my podcasts, sacred geometry is the basis and the pattern and the foundation of all life and existence, right? So this spiral could be mathematically utilized and represented, but also it's a way to connect us, some believe, to the higher realms. Remember, our eyes are one of our strongest senses, followed by touch. So symbols can stimulate thoughts, insights, and insights we didn't know we possessed, and they can awaken the deeper mind. So when they etch these, when they were everywhere, when they saw them everywhere? Did that remind them of the connection? Did it remind them of where we came from? Because some say the spiral looks a lot like our galaxy. You know, if you look at our galaxy, it spirals out. Well, how would they know that? No one knew, or they hadn't seen the space in our galaxy, but they somehow had a sense of the importance of this spiral. So, you know, I mentioned that even the Native Americans in North America had, I'm going to show you something, had a spiral. And I was at Arizona one time, and I was drawn to this. I went to the market where the Native Americans were selling their jewelry. And this is a spiral, and it's one side spirals in one direction and the bottom spirals in another direction. And some say that that is representative of our spiritual growth and then our earthly growth. But it's very prevalent even in the Navajo beliefs. And I was drawn to it. And this was way before I knew anything about symbols. So when I looked at that, did something awaken in me? Did something resonate? Did I remember something? Did it touch a part of me that maybe I didn't even know was asleep? Perhaps. And I wear this a lot. So the other thing, talking about sacred geometry, is, and I've talked about this again and in my book and on my last podcast, is the flower of life symbol. Now, the flower of life is probably just as prevalent all over the world as the spiral. And it is said that the flower of life encompasses all of the geometric patterns. So it's one of the most powerful and strongest geometric symbol. So is the tree of life, by the way. But this is, I'll hold it a little closer. Hopefully you can see that. This is the flower of life. I was going to have this made, ironically. And when I was in England, I went into a little shop and there it was. And I went, oh, that's mine. I'll buy that. Thank you very much. But you notice also that it's in a triangle. So the triangle, again, which was on the cave wall, is one of the very basic symbols of geometry, and it's been around for a very long time. So a triangle talks about, in order to reach enlightenment, it's important to balance the three elements of our being. These elements are represented by the three sides of the triangle. So the first side represents our physical body, the second side can represent our mind, and the third side represents our spirit. And by balancing these three elements, we can achieve a state of harmony and peace. According to the Hindus, the triangle, or yantra, is a symbol that is used to focus and direct energy. So again, there we're going to use our eyes, our intent, using this symbol. Also, the Merkaba, which I've talked about, and I've had experience with in dreams, is made from two inverted triangles, one pointing up, one pointing down. The one pointing up can represent the male energy of fire and air, and the one pointing down is the female energy, which is earth and water. And so the Merkaba, when it's joined and the two triangles come together to form this Merkaba, the Merkaba is also referred to as a chariot. So by looking at the Merkaba, it takes you, it acts as a portal, it opens a portal. And how does it do that? We look at it, we feel it, we touch it, we set the intent, and again, it's a tool. So, so how did some of these symbols come to me? Well, I wanted to talk to you about the very first time that I was given these symbols. And well, no, it was probably the second time. I lie. First time on my spiritual path. But I was in Malta, and our guide. She was an amazing woman. Her name was Sue Jones. And not only is she an archaeologist, she's also a medium and a channel. So we would go to these sites, and then she'd explain the sites and all the archaeology information that they've gathered. And then we would sit and she'd channel the beings that used to be there. And so it was a fascinating tour. A lot of things happened to me on there. But one day we're in the bus and we're driving along, and I get a tap on my shoulder, and Sue's sitting behind me. And she had written something on the paper. And she goes, "Here." And I said, "What is this?" And she said, "Well, two things." She said, "This design, Robbie said, it's your name in an ancient language. And this design, you are supposed to work with." Okay. So I tucked it away. And then about a year later, I thought, I'm going to do something with those designs. So I took out the one design, and I'm going to show you here in a minute. And I went and had my bracelet made. And this is my bracelet. And can you see those symbols on my bracelet? And I always wear this bracelet when I do my spiritual work. Why? Because number one, it came from Robbie. But number two, it does make me feel more connected. Well, when I do this work, I like confirmation. I like to know, okay, I can take it on faith that, she said she talked to Robbie and that this was my name in an ancient language of who I really was, actually of my higher self. But that's a belief, right? So I like confirmation. So shortly after I had this bracelet made, I had a reading by a very reputable medium, and we're on the phone, so she can't see me. And she said, "What are you wearing on your wrist?" And I said, "My new bracelet." And she goes, "Oh." She goes, "Well, that's very powerful, and you're being told when you do this work to wear that bracelet." Okay. And then shortly after that is when I started channeling. So was it the symbols on my bracelet? Maybe. Did it amplify me in some way? Yeah, I think so. The symbols, it's our eyes, it's our touch, it's our intent, but it's a tool. And I think it's a tool, like I said earlier, that's underutilized. So I was thrilled about the bracelet. But then she had also given me a design, and I'm going to show you this. And so I thought, okay, well, if my bracelet's this powerful, then I'm going to do something with that other design. So I'm going to show you this. Can you see that? Always go the wrong way. So it's a triangle with the eye, the all-seeing eye in the middle of it. And that was the design that was given to me. And she said, "Robbie wants you to do this." And she said, and he said to use the ruby that you have. And I go, "I don't have a ruby." And so anyway, when I decided I was going to make that, I actually made it from his ring. And I'm going through my jewelry, and I had forgotten that when my husband's grandmother passed, she left a ring for me, and it was a ruby. And so I took the ruby out of that, and I asked my jeweler to make this necklace. Now I wear it a lot. You'll see me wearing my jewelry. My jewelry is purposeful. But I just had another reading from a very good medium. Again, she couldn't see me. We're on the phone. And she said, "Okay, what are you wearing? What kind of necklace do you have? Because Spirit said you are supposed to wear that when you do this work. It's very powerful." And she was connecting with Robbie at the time. And so I told her what it was. And she said, "Yeah." There is power in that symbol. Now, the all-seeing eye, that goes back. And there's all the way to Egypt, right? It's a symbol. So it's a symbol that is representative of divine watchfulness of the supreme being taking care of the entire universe. It is shown as a single human eye enclosed in a triangle and often surrounded by bursts of light. It is also known as the all-seeing eye, the eye of providence. The symbol has been used since ancient times to signify the omniscience and omnipresence of God and his powerful and guardian character. In Christianity, it represents the Trinity. The Masons, the Templars, it was a very sacred symbol. We have it on our dollar bill. But it is rooted in mythology in what was called the Eye of Ra. So it goes way back. It's been there for a long time. But it was a symbol I would have never picked. I would have never gone to an ancient symbol like that to pick. It picked me. So I'm coming up on a break time right now. So I'm going to take a break. And when I come back, I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I was a little girl. So we'll be right back.
OMTimes TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. OMTimes Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, OMTimes offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an OMTimes magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on OMTimes TV and broadcasting it across the extensive OMTimes radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. OMTimes. Open yourself to the possibilities. The story told in Entering the Light Fantastic, Discovering Life After Life Through Orbs, is about Nancy Meyer's spiritual and emotional rising from the devastating ashes of loss caused by the sudden and unexpected passing of her son Robbie. Just like the legend of the reborn phoenix, Nancy's life purpose and focus was transformed. With the help from her son in spirit, Nancy found herself providing proof through orbs that our souls do not die with our bodies. In her second book, Encircled by the Light Fantastic, A Deeper Journey into the Light with Orbs, Nancy continues chronicling her path of gaining spiritual knowledge and expanding acceptance of what is possible, while traveling to many sacred and ancient sites around the world. She shares these experiences with you along with her photographs of remarkable spirit encounters.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We have this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
We discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
love.
Hey, welcome back. So if we can bring up that next slide, Chris, please. So this slide says symbols are to the mind what tools are to the hand, an extended application of its powers. And that's a quote attributed to a Dion Fortune, who was a prominent English-British spiritualist in the late 1800s, and she founded the Society of Inner Light. And I like this orb because if I look at it, sometimes I see a tiger, sometimes I see like the dragon of the Chinese dragons. Again, that's the multi-layerness of spirit. But symbols is exactly what it is. It's a tool. Can we do it without these symbols? Absolutely. But do the symbols help us to have a better connection, to reach further, to reach higher, to reach quicker? I believe so. I truly believe so. Now, I've told you, thank you, Chris, very much. I've told you now how 2 of the symbols were given to me through outside sources. But I want to share with you this one that was given to me directly in my dreams. And I was, my dreams are the most active, or I remember, or I'm downloaded right in the twilight, right before you wake up. And was the situation this morning, not this morning, but one morning. And I could see a symbol that looked like, and it was bright white, beautiful bright white. And it looked like the symbol of Mercedes, the Mercedes Benz, right? You know how they have that Y kind of symbol. And I'm going, why am I seeing, the Mercedes Benz symbol? I don't understand. I don't understand. And then they put it in a triangle. And I went, oh, okay. So I got up and I drew what I saw. And I thought, well, I'm going to find out what this is. Well, and I'm wearing it because I did have it made. And you can see the triangle and what I call the Mercedes-Benz symbol. Well, this is actually called the Eye of the Dragon. Again, no knowledge. That's when you know it's given to you. And it stands for the balance of love, power, and wisdom. Triple triangles are associated with the goddess and the 9 muses. Also a well-known symbol of protection. And I liked that it was the symbol of protection. And plus, I've spoken to you about my connection to the dragons and my pictures of my dragon over my head. But because I do what I do and I open myself up spiritually to take orb pictures, I have to be careful. But what Spirit was telling me is you wear this when you do that work and you are protected. So are these symbols also amulets? Yes. Again, I believe it's an underused tool of spirit. We live in a physical world. These are representations of the unseen. But because we live in the physical world, we have something physical to focus on. So I just loved that. Interestingly enough, when I was just in England last September and I did a show about, what happened, some of the things that happened to me, they gave me a new symbol. I go, oh boy, back to the jewelers. But I'm researching it because I wanted to see, okay, what is this symbol? And it's so unique and so amazing. So I believe I'm going to try and put it in a ring and utilize that. And I'm going to talk about Solomon's ring in a minute. But I wanted to share with you what happened to me when I was a little girl. It was in the early 60s, and I was probably 9 or 10 years old. And my parents took us down to Cape Canaveral. And we were touring around, I'm this ADD kid looking all around, kind of not paying attention. And we're in the souvenir shop, and I see these images of things to buy with a logo on it. It literally stopped me in my tracks. And here's the logo. Can you see that? That's the logo. So I'll describe that. It's kind of like an ankh, or the image or the symbol for female with a number 7 and then a half circle on the top. So this, as I was walking around as a little girl and I saw this symbol, I believe it stopped me and I couldn't take my eyes off of it. Now, as a little girl, I didn't have my own money. So I said, Dad, I got to have this. And he's going, why? I go, I don't know. Please buy it. Please buy it. Well, we ended up, the only thing that we could really use was a letter opener, and it had that symbol on the handle. And I had it for years and years and years. And I was just so attracted to that. But I always thought, why? Why was I so attracted to that? Well, it's reminiscent of an ankh. Like I said, ankh is the key of life. That's the ancient Egyptian symbol, right? You see it everywhere. So was I recognizing the ankh from a past life? It also represents the planet Mercury. It also represents, because it was called Mercury 7, that was their logo, Mercury 7 space mission, and that was their logo that they designed. And so the 7, again, and we talked about numbers earlier, it's the number of perfection. There is much to the 7 wonders of the world, the 7 days of the week. The number 7 also suggests completeness. It is one of the secret numbers we see that is a symbol of perfection and symbol of eternal life. So it fits right in with the ankh. So the number 7, again, numerology and numbers are powerful symbols, but number 7 is considered to be the foundation of the Word of God. This number has been used 735 times in the Bible. It is the number closest to perfection, beauty, creativity, and completeness. It also symbolizes the oneness of God and his authority over all creatures on earth. The book of Revelations has mentioned 7 churches, 7 angels, 7 plagues, 7 trumpets, 7 thunders. You get the idea. So Jesus even gave 7 parables during his ministry on earth. And he also performed a series of 7 miracles. So within this circle is so much. So when I looked at that as a little girl, was I remembering something? I think so. I now that I know what it all represents, and I love that it can represent the divine feminine, which is the planet Venus, and we are coming into the shift, which is kind of a resurrection of the divine feminine to come to the rightful place alongside the divine masculine. So, again, I was 9 or 10 years old. I had no idea about any of this, but something in my soul said, you need to get that and keep that symbol near you, which I did. So, another thing that I wanted to share with you is I'm a Reiki master, and that was part of my spiritual journey. It took me a year, and it should take you a little while to become a Reiki master. You have to go through level 1, 2, 3, and then be an instructor, and then that's when you actually obtain Reiki level master. But when you complete level 3, you are given, I don't want to say secret, but sacred symbols. And you are not supposed to share them with anybody. And before I do Reiki on a client, I use one that is called chakra, and chakra is considered the power symbol. And I will take my hand in the palm of my hand, and I will trace that symbol in my hand. And as I'm tracing the symbol, I can feel the power or the outline of the symbol going into my hand without touching my hand. So is that what the ancients were doing when they traced the symbols, when they constantly looked at them, when they constantly were reminded of them, was the power, and then the power of those images, the power of that touch was put into them, into their aura, into their psyche. Yeah, I think so. I really do. So, again, the Reiki is the symbol. When I first did that and I felt that, I went, wow, I can feel my finger going in the, above my hand in the air. So I just found that amazing. But symbols are meant to be experienced. They are powerful gateways. And we have lost that. I lament a lot about the absence of mystery schools. But I think spirit has its own way of teaching us individually what it is we need to know. And so, even without the mystery schools. So, I think if you open yourself up, if you honor the symbols that you are drawn to, if you're drawn to any, and start utilizing them, or if you dream of something, pay attention. You're being given, I believe, a lesson in the mysteries and how to have a better connection. I hope I made that clear with all my silly examples, but I didn't ask for this. I wasn't looking for symbols. Again, they came to me. So symbolism is the language of the mysteries. By symbols, man has ever sought to communicate to each other those thoughts which transcend the limitations of language. Again, a symbol can be so multi-layered. One word is one word, but a symbol can carry so much. So, and that's actually on slide 3, if we can bring that up, Chris, and I'll show you one of my favorite orbs. This is one of my very favorite. I call this, again, the crown jewels. So it says, symbolism is the language of the mysteries. By symbols, men has ever sought to communicate to each other those thoughts which transcend the limitations of language. And that is by Manly Hall. And he was a Canadian author, lecturer, and astrologer and mystic. And he was a very prolific author, but one of his best-known books was written in 1928, and it was called The Secret Teachings of All Ages. So let's see. I have a few more minutes, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, I promised King Solomon's ring, and then I'm going to talk to you about the galactic butterfly. So, I always try to tie this in with the orbs, and I do have an orb that's on my website that was the yin yang symbol, and there is an image that I have found, and I'm going to show that to you. And this is a Mayan image. And this is a very sacred image to the Mayans. Did you know that the Mayans are one of the longest lasting and largest civilizations in known history? I did not know that. But this symbol, which is black and white, reminiscent of the yin yang, it's called the Hunab Ku, and it represents their supreme God and ultimate creator. And this symbol was located, or they believe, came from the center of the Milky Way. Again, how do they know this? Thousands of years ago. It represented the gateway to other galaxies. So they used the symbol to transcend our dimension. A symbol, just like the Merkaba can take us to other places. And it took me, this symbol, gazing upon it, utilizing it, can open portals. That's how powerful symbols can be. So this symbol was also, the Mayans were known for their calendars and timekeeping and astrology. And this symbol, again, it's called the galactic butterfly. And I just love that, the galactic butterfly. But it's found on the center of, like, the Mayan calendar that we all heard about, when the world was supposed to end in either 2000 or 2012, depending on who you followed. But again, it wasn't an ending. It was an entrance into a new time, a new phase. So that's where we are now. We are in the age of Aquarius. We are in the new 24,000 or 26,000 year cycle. So I just wanted to explain that one to you because I love that. I love that this one was used, and they actually say, to open a portal. They said that this symbol could take them not just to the higher realms, but through time, backwards or forwards. And maybe that's how they knew about the Mayan calendar. Maybe that's how they knew that, when we were going to enter the new age, because they traveled there. Who knows, right? Who knows? So I wanted to tell you a little bit about this because I wear my symbols. I do, and I believe that they make a huge difference. And so there's, for lack of a better term, a myth about King Solomon. Now, we all know Solomon's temple. We all know about, what a powerful ruler he was. But there's a myth that said King Solomon was given a ring. And the myth goes that this ring was one of 12, and the others were distributed to rulers throughout the galaxy. So, but this myth, it's dismissed by a lot of people, but the myth of King Solomon's ring is found on 6 continents. It's a very pervasive myth. So perhaps there's something to it. In fact, there was a book written in the 2nd or 3rd century about the ring, and it's called The Testament of Solomon. So you can look it up. But it is said that when he wore this ring, he could do things such as talk to the animals. He could control the weather. He could rule the underworld and make them do what it was he wanted to do, which is how they say Solomon's temple was built. It was a seal. It had a powerful jewel in it. And when it was his time, the ring went back to its rightful place and was hidden because it was so powerful. So that's just an example of how powerful and important symbols are. So we have used symbols from the dawn of our existence. And what I find incredible is we have used symbols that are very similar. It's like the scientist said, there's 32 symbols that span 30,000 years and multiple civilizations. Who gave them those symbols? Where did they come from? Why are they all the same? Was it given to us by the higher realms? And that's why symbols are so important, because that's what reconnects us. I believe it is. I believe that the symbols are important. I believe that the symbols, again, are a tool. And I believe that it's a tool that is underutilized. So that's why I'm talking about it today. So, okay. So I'm going to do 2 things here. I'm going to read Leonini's message for you. I sat yesterday and I said, okay, I have to tell you the backstory because it's kind of funny. I said, okay, Leonini, would you like to channel a message for my podcast tomorrow? And I'm sitting there and I could feel her. I knew she was there, but I'm not getting anything. And I'm saying in my head, I got nothing. She goes, yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Was nothing. So here's her message. Nothing, no thing, empty, lifeless. That would be your world without your spiritual connection to all that is. All that is opposite to nothing. You were not meant to be no thing. You were meant to be part of all that is. This is not a conceited way to look at yourself, because this is how you were created. It is when you accept this, understand and embrace this, that you begin to fulfill your purpose of existing in this life form. Today we remind you of your magnificence and the magnificence from whence you came. There is nothing about your existence that is small. There is nothing about your potential that is limited. There is nothing about your soul that impedes you. You are magnificent. You are a magnificent being. There is no thing. There is only everything, and you embody it all. I found that really interesting, especially because we're talking about symbols and how to reach up to the higher realms, and that our capabilities are limitless. So once again, I thank my guide, Leonini. I thank her for her sense of humor. It's like, Leonini, I got nothing. She goes, yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about. Nothing. Okay. So anyway, so today for the card reading, I have chosen my sacred destiny, kind of in line with everything that we're talking about today. So I'm going to shuffle, here's the cards. I'm going to shuffle the cards with the intent that this message is for all, that this message is hopeful, helpful, and healing, and that it comes from the highest good and for the highest good, and that everyone can find a message in this. So I'm going to shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. I hope you enjoyed the podcast about symbols. I just it now symbols. It's a vast subject. So I only picked, obviously, a very small part. I only picked the parts that interested me or that I had experience with. But perhaps my talk today will inspire you to look into it a little deeper, to explore it. If we are given these tools by Spirit and we don't take advantage of them, to me, that's sad. So I hope that, maybe you can research it and see what happens, or invite Spirit. Say, hey, I want to know my symbol. What is my symbol? And see what they say. So when I get my new ring made, I will show everybody. So okay. So here we go for the reading. I'm taking the top card here. Okay. So it says illumination. And it's just like I talked about today. It's the light goes on, the awareness of something is lit so that you can then explore it. That's how we learn. Sometimes if we don't know it exists, like I didn't understand symbols. I didn't understand they carried power. I didn't understand that they carried meaning, and could be useful, until Spirit started working with me. They lit that part of my brain up. So if you sit in meditation, if you ask for the illumination, show me what's available, show me how I can better myself, then that Spirit will respond. So, we think of illumination as enlightenment, which is correct, but illumination is also shining lights on areas that have either been closed off or forgotten. And that's what Spirit wanted to talk about today. Don't forget, there are many spheres of Spirit. That's why my son told me, Mom, call it the spheres of Spirit, because there's so many different areas that is associated with spiritual work. So next week, I'm toying with the idea and trying to talk my husband into being on the show. So I hope he is, because I would love to bring the aspect from his side of our journey together, of how his life has changed since our son crossed, what he has learned. And I hope I can talk him into that. So it's hold space. He's a little shy when it comes to stuff like that, but I think I can talk him into it. And I think especially the males of my audience might be able to relate. When I first started doing this work, I'd go to these workshops and there would only be, there'd be 50 women and maybe 1 or 2 men. And now it's maybe 60-40. So I just love that. I want the men to feel safe and have a safe place to talk and not feel intimidated about, oh my gosh, I can't talk about this side of my life. So maybe we can do that for the guys. So anyway, thank you again for spending some time with me. It was wonderful, and I hope you enjoyed being with us. I enjoyed having you. Take care. Bye-bye.